May the Force be with us, because this is the way. Book of Boba Fett Episode 3 spoiler review coming right now, guys. I'm a giant Star Wars fan, and I'm sure if you're here with me, you probably also love talking Star Wars. So this is the perfect place for you guys to come so we can have a great discussion on this very short episode that started to finally move the episode and the entire saga a little bit faster, and not too much flashbacks, which was kind of nice. But we're gonna have a great discussion here, guys, so make sure to leave a comment as well as hit that like and subscribe button if you love talking Star Wars and you need a place to come talk it, because I love talking movies and TV every single day over here, so you'll get tons of content like this. But overall, let's jump right into this Book of Boba Fett episode, because it was like, what, 31 to 38 minutes long? I don't know why I expected like another 50-minute long episode, and when I saw the runtime, I'm like, seriously? God. And then I got my fears rising up when I saw the bacta tank. I was like, I really do not want to see that, because then I know what that means. We're going to a flashback. But let's talk about the events. And I do want to talk about the flashback first, because that was the absolute shortest amount of time within this episode. Of course, the episode starts out and he pretty much has this new guy who's coming down, which I really like that actor. He's from Barry and he's freaking awesome. If you haven't seen Barry yet, absolutely check out that show on HBO. The new season's coming out later this year. But, you know, he comes down and says, I need help. These people are stealing my water. Boba Fett's like, all right, no one's respecting me. I'm going to go do this. Meets these kids who are cybernetic, and a little bit weird. I kind of got vibes of Alita Battle Angel and Cyberpunk in that certain nature with these kids with like the robotic arms, robotic legs, eyes, stuff like that. And even watching this entire episode, before I even knew Robert Rodriguez had directed this one, I know he did the first one, he didn't do the second episode. I absolutely knew that he did the third episode, from the way that the action was shot to some of the editing stylish choices. I like Rodriguez as a director. I just think sometimes he could be a bit better with his action sequences. We'll talk about that in a second. But I thought in here it was pretty obvious that he was doing this. And, you know, Boba Fett continues to make these choices. He goes, hey, you know, come work for me. You guys need a job? Come work for me. Guy gets mad. He says, fuck you. Here's $500. Get out of our way. They are not paying you back. And he starts to build his little bit of an army up a little bit more, which is cool to see Boba Fett creating his army in a sense, his family. And I like that, because I think in the way that we look at Boba Fett as a character, and when we see him as a younger kid and how he was raised, of course, on Kamino with the clones and everything of that nature, it's very interesting to see that parallel now, and as well as maybe the family that he saw that Jabba had that was just fearful and scared of him. He wants that family that respects him, and he wants people to respect him around him, but not in the fearful way. And I think it's going to start coming down to that point. But of course, within this, he ends up going to the bacta tank. We knew that flashback was going to happen. And thank God the flashback was not for the entire episode, because this episode, for me, while we are about almost halfway through the entire series, next week will be pretty much the halfway point. We're like 3.5 out of the way. And I think for me, when it comes down to this entire storyline, is in the bacta tank. We see him, he's traveling, he's going to make the deal with the Pikes. The Pikes say, hey, this gang, these are the ones that we're paying them already, so we can't do both. So he goes, all right, I'll be back. I will make sure that you never speak of them again. Heads back to the Tusken Raiders, and they are all dead, wiped out completely, massacred. And of course, he sees the symbol from the gang, and that just sets him on his way, which I'm sure next week will be a flashback of him going to kill this gang. But my theory for this, and I love talking theories with you guys, so make sure to also leave your guys' theories down below. I think he's going to go to that gang and end up finding out that the Pikes actually told them to go wipe them out. And that's where it's going to set off his anger towards the Pikes, which we will talk about a little bit more towards the end of this episode, what that means for it all. And again, if you guys agree with that, I actually want to see your guys' thoughts. Maybe you disagree, but of course, everything ends. The freaking Wookiee Christian? I can never pronounce his name, but the second I saw him last week, I'm like, he looks so familiar. Then after the episode, I went and dove into him, and I'm like, oh my god, he was from the Dr. Alpha's comic series, and he's back once again in here, ripping him out of the bacta tank and kicking Boba Fett's ass. He has the gauntlets, he has the brass knuckles, he's wiping his ass on the floor. Boba Fett does not know what to do, caught off guard. His little minions come in to try and guard him, and it becomes an all-out brawl to destroy destroy and defeat this Wookiee, which I thought was just awesome because it really much brings to life this character that we knew from the comics, which again, I went back and reread some of those because I had to dive into this character, who's a really cool character, and I'm a little bit disappointed he didn't stay with Boba Fett's gang, like he kind of just ran off, but we'll talk about that in a second. They get him in the pit, they trap him, then of course the Hutt Twins come by, and I feel like this is kind of where I want to get down to it, is because while I'm enjoying this episode, and in general enjoying the show, the pacing feels so off for each of these episodes. Sometimes it's too slow, sometimes it's too fast, and I feel like a lot of these episodes need time to breathe, as well as the two storylines that are going correlating with one another, the present and also the past. And I really do feel like this show is having issues containing both of those. There's interesting stories told within both of those, but there's something going on within there that I'm really hoping that by the end of it all, when we look back, maybe this would work better as a binging series more than just watching week to week, because as of right now, I'm getting a little bit frustrated with certain elements with that, and I do feel like this show needs to really further out. And in general, this entire timeline, it just feels like they're rushing through it. The twins come, and then they're like, we have a gift for you as a sorry that we sent this Wookiee to come kill you. We've decided to get off world, yada, 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 because there's a different syndicate coming that the mayor promised, which at first I thought, is this the Crimson Dawn? Like, is this who we're getting? Because I know a lot of people have been theorizing that maybe Kira will show up in here, which I think would be awesome. But in the end of the day, it was clearly going to be the Pikes. And I think this is kind of just setting up for, of course, what Boba Fett sends at the end, that this is going to be a war with them. And I think for me, in this instance, it was cool to see that he's getting the Rancor. That's awesome. But it was also cool to see that Danny Trejo was the one that's kind of like the trainer, the breeder, and also going to be the one that's training him, who's now at the compound with them. Awesome to see Danny Trejo in the Star Wars realm. But the Hutt Twins pretty much give him a warning, and they're off. They don't want the Gladiator Wookiee anymore, and he just kind of runs off, which again, I wish he would have stayed with Boba Fett, hoping that isn't the last that we see of him, because that is a really cool character that I would like to expand more on. And I'm also just wondering, like, why isn't Boba Fett calling in, like, his gang back in the day from Empire Strikes Back? Bosk, Yengar, I cannot remember the guy's name, but a bunch of those different bounty hunters that we saw in Empire Strikes Back, why aren't we seeing them in here? You think Boba Fett would be like, hey, you know, come on guys, let's take the Pikes on. That's kind of where it kind of gets down to us. They go to the mayor, they want that meeting, and for me in that instance, that was one of the things where I'm like, hell yeah, he's gonna kick the mayor's ass. Mayor escaped, he's actually with the Pikes. They have this nice car chase, this hovercraft chase through the marketplace, which I thought was a lot of cool fun in there, and he ends up just pretty much saying, you know what? Fuck it, not worth it. The mayor's with the Pikes, which then makes him stalking them and kind of figuring out that a lot of Pikes are coming to here for something. And I think this is kind of where it comes down to in this vein, that there is going to be a war. And I think next week we'll start that. But again, with my theory going into it, I think Boba Fett wants this war because the Pikes did kill those Tusken Raiders that saved his life and pretty much brought him back to where he is now, and in a sense taught him a different part of his life. And I think that is going to be something to see if that revelation comes true. And if it does, hell yeah, Boba Fett, you defeat those damn Pikes. But the last thing I didn't get to mention was when he actually gets that interaction with the Rancor, and learning a little bit more about the Rancor and how they act, because when we see them, they're always monsters and crazy and destroying everything, but I think this is going to play into it. Boba Fett obviously says he wants to learn how to ride one. We damn right know that Boba Fett is going to be riding a Rancor by at least the end of the season and probably wiping out some Pikes. But I want to throw out a theory, and I've been saying this for a couple weeks. I've been really much praising that I would be shocked if Cad Bane does not show up in this show whatsoever. I think him, Din, those are two very, especially Din as the Mandalorian, and this taking place afterwards, but I really think as an outside shot, I still believe that Cad Bane is coming in here because they do have this rivalry back in Clone Wars, even though that some of the episodes didn't air and some of it isn't canon now. There's certain stuff in there. The dent in his helmet, that is from Cad Bane, and I want to see that actually happen inside the show and really much address more of that. I'm assuming he is actually working for the Pikes. Like, if I'm going to go with anything, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pikes hired Cad Bane. Again, I could be completely off record. That's just kind of like my one theory. I love throwing out theories, and I love having fun talking with you guys down below in the comment section. Overall, really like this episode. I think last week was still the better overall episode because of the pacing, the way that it was directed. But I still wish that this show would really much either focus on one or the other. Finally, they're starting to kind of take my hint of, if you're going to do a flashback, make it actually worthwhile to the present timeline, but it remains to be seen if my theory is true on what is going on with the Tusken Raiders and who sent them after to be dead. Was it just the gang? Was the Pikes involved at all? It's going to be interesting, guys. Make sure, again, to hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here. Remember, this is the way that we talk about it every night, right at midnight. I'm here reviewing the show for you guys, and I can't wait to read your guys' comments this week on this episode and see what your guys' thoughts are, because that is again my favorite thing to do. But of course, guys, until next time, I'll see you guys next week for the next Book of Boba Fett.